Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Audit Compliance and Title IX Committee meeting of March 9th at 2:15. Let's start with roll call, please.
Chair Perkins,
Here.
Vice Chair Ariscotta,
There.
Regent Boylan,
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
Regent Cruz Crawford, Regent Del Carlo. You do have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, let's open it up with public comment. Item number 1. Any public comment in Elko?
No public comment in Elko.
Thank you. Any public comment in Reno?
There's none in Reno.
Thank you. Any public comment here in North Las Vegas? Seeing none. And was there any electronic public comment for this meeting?
No, there was not.
Thank you. And with that, I'll go to item number 2. Mr. Sunbury, take it away.
Thank you, Chair Perkins. Joe Sunbury for the record. Thank you for your attention for the next 3 or 4 hours as we go through these materials. No, I'm just joking. We'll make up some time here. But so you may recall just a few short weeks ago in January, I provided as part of the board orientation a few slides on internal audit. The team that I've been overseeing the last 7.5 years, and Chair Perkins has kindly allowed me to continue that orientation through the lens of this specific committee. And the timing is great. We have a new committee chair, several new committee members, and I will apologize to Regent Del Carlo, who's now sat through this a handful of times, but I'll try to freshen it up a bit. I won't repeat everything I said in January, but hopefully in the next few minutes, you'll see these are exciting times for the Audit Compliance and Title IX Committee. I've included in your materials a summary page which has the bylaws and duties of the committee straight from the Board of Regents Handbook, Title I, Article 6, Section 3. And before we get started with the bylaws, I just want to remind the committee of the dynamics here. We have a unique setup in the internal audit department. That's that concept I spoke about in January about dual reporting relationships. So my position as the chief internal auditor reports functionally to the chair of this committee. I feel that's an important distinction to note because it's that structure with that functional report to this body, that's what really allows the department to maintain its independence that is so critical. We can truly perform those independent assessments, consulting, advisory activities without bias, helping to carry out the main duties of the committee. So in talking about those duties, I won't read them verbatim, but I thought it'd be useful to highlight a few for discussion, what we do to satisfy those, and what to expect at this and future meetings. So the first bylaw relates to the committee's review and evaluation of reports, follow-up reports, things of that nature. So typically, these meetings will have a handful of reports presented. Most of these tend to be deliverables from our internal audits. These reports are presented with recommendations and the institution's action plans already embedded into the report, which helps expedite discussion. But that's also important to me because it shows the collaborative approach. Audit working with management, trying to find solutions. So applying that to today's meeting, in a bit you'll see a few follow-up reports within our consent agenda and a few first-time reports from internal audit later in the meeting. The second bylaw relates to the committee's duty to recommend a CPA firm to audit the financials of NSHE, to review and evaluate reports presented by that independent firm. It just so happens the back part of this meeting today will include some audit reports from those external auditors. I'm not going to steal their thunder, but you can expect our external auditors, Grant Thornton, to present updates on their financial statement audit and the audit of federal student aid, other major programs. While the financial statements themselves are the responsibility of management, the external auditors present their opinion and other required communications, which includes a report on any deficiencies noted, and we'll have an opportunity for robust discussion. So just very quickly, two more bylaws I want to note, one which will pertain to this meeting and one that I think will be useful at the next meeting. So the fifth bullet point on my memo talks about the correction of deficiencies found within our reports. And that's where today's item number 8, where that will be accomplished. So essentially this is where we monitor any recommendations that have yet to be fixed. It's not something that we've always tracked so visibly, and I give kudos to the team, specifically Daisy and Eric, who took the report that you'll see today from nearly a 200-page, difficult to read report to a much more digestible few dozen pages with pretty graphs and 5-year trends and things like that. So we'll get into that a little bit more detail here later in the meeting. And the last bylaw I wanted to call out specifically is the 9th one related to Title IX compliance and policy recommendations. Those of you that have been on the board for a while likely recall during the pandemic, major required overhauls related to Title IX in a relatively short window of time. I think those changes came to the full board, which back then, given the semi-remote nature of the meetings and obviously the importance of those discussions, but it's something that this committee should continue to keep on its radar. And as a matter of fact, I think it was the first meeting I had with the newly named chair of the committee, we talked about the importance of getting the committee familiar and perhaps having some guest experts from institutions to speak to the committee to provide updates. And I am happy to share that the committee does have a commitment from one of our institutional Title IX directors who would be happy to speak at your next meeting. As you'll see later today, we present our audit plan for the committee's approval. We realize risks don't wait to show up until the next fiscal year, so we try to build in agility, flexibility to address emerging issues in real time. To ensure we're maximizing our coverage, we emphasize training, professional development, try to keep our competencies current, but we increasingly look to that collaboration, right? The ability to leverage skill sets and competencies in other areas which help us efficiently use our limited resources, but ultimately leads to more informed decision making. The last thing I'll mention, quite humbly, is that through work with and support from this committee in past years, I've had the opportunity to speak at the National Conference for the Association of College and University Auditors. You've heard me reference that wild bunch before. It's great. The first time I did that, I was talking about the unique position of a committee like this one, how you can really help to connect the dots across an organization, the type of engagement with the committee, and develop via relevant workshops. And I mentioned that today because we do have a commitment, again, from our external auditors, Grant Thornton, to do a workshop at your June committee meeting. So we're making great strides on that front. So that concludes my prepared remarks, but happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Regent Del Carlo.
Thank you, Chair Perkins. The Title IX, I think for clarification, Joe, was, it used to be part of the Cultural Diversity Committee, and then it came out into the Audit Committee. And of course, Cultural Diversity Committee is now the IDEA Committee. So I'm pretty sure that's right.
Thank you, Regent Del Carlo. For the record, Joe Sunbury, you're absolutely right. And actually, so I've been here 7.5 years. When I first started, it was the Audit Committee, then it was the Audit and Compliance Committee. Now it's the Audit, Compliance, and Title IX Committee. So in a few more years, maybe it'll be even longer.
Yes, and this is my 7th year, so I got the same point of reference.
Great.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board or from any board members in attendance? Thank you. I have one, though. How do you decide what to audit?
Thank you, Chair Perkins. For the record, Joe Sunbury. So, I had the benefit of my first audit committee, which would have been August of 2015. We happened to present a quality assurance review. And in that quality assurance review, they had a couple of items they recommended to ensure that we're generally conforming with the Institute of Internal Audit standards. And part of that was we needed to kind of revamp our risk assessment process. And we needed to, sort of rethink how we thought, what does our audit universe look like? And then we needed to sort of think about, well, what are some of our risk factors, right? And so we went through a very deliberate process, and that risk assessment is really what informs mostly that's probably the majority of how we get to our audit plan. And I do, I'm not trying to deflect your question, but I will speak on that a little bit more in item number 8 when we present that plan. But yeah, that's sort of what leads up to our audit plan. It's that risk assessment process.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. Any other questions? Okay. And with that, we'll move to item number 3, consent items. I'd like to entertain a motion for approval for the consent items.
Motion for acceptance of consent items?
Thank you, Regent Ariscata.
I'll
and-
second it.
I've already got a second from
You have.
Carol.
I'll
Yes,
throw
from,
it.
I'm sorry,
So-
Regent Del Carlo. With that, motion by Vice Chair Ariscata and a second by Regent Del Carlo. Any discussion or questions? And all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. For the chair's report, I will be relatively short. There we go. Item number 5.
Thank you, Chair Perkins. We are going to make up some time here. For the record, Joe Sunbury, Chief Internal Auditor. So in the audit summary document, I've included a table of reports being presented today, which includes updates on those follow-ups that were just approved a few moments ago. And as always, want to say thank you to the institutions and offices with reports being presented. So this first internal audit report today is student housing at GBC. So the team, and specifically my audit manager, Lauren Tripp, did a great job noting control improvements in areas like student accounts. So think, review of late fees, reconciliations, student safety, think conduct issues, security, mental health, as well as some considerations related to staffing for proper supportive operations and policies and procedures considerations that would formalize and document some related processes. And we do have GBC's business officer present if you have any specific questions. Thank you.
And with that, are there any questions from the committee or any board members in attendance? Seeing none. Once again, I have one. I was wondering about the cameras. They were supposed to be installed, and how is that coming along?
Good afternoon. For the record, Sonia Seibert, Business Officer for Great Basin College. We are in the process of obtaining quotes on those, and installation is going to start as soon as possible. Right now, kind of hard with the weather in Elko, so probably be a springtime project, but we will have them done by summer.
Thank you very much. I went through the audit papers, and I was very impressed about the changes you all made to make the students safer.
Thank you.
Any other questions from any board member or those in attendance? Awesome. Item number 6. Is that? Thank you. For possible action. So I will entertain a motion. Was that your motion, Regent DeCarlo?
Yes, I'll make the motion to approve the report and institutional response for the GBC student housing audit for the period July 1st, 2021 through July 30th, 2022.
Thank you so much. Do I have a second?
Second.
Regent Ariscata was the second. Any discussion? Seeing none. I'm losing my voice here. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. The change in leadership at NSHE, item number 6.
Thank you, Chair Perkins. For the record, Joe Sunbury. So for the sake of the newer committee members, some additional background. Historically, when there's a change in institution president, or in this case, chancellor, we'll perform what we call a change in leadership audit. So this typically occurs within the new leader's first year. The idea behind these reviews came well before my time, really decades ago, and it's really for the sake of the incoming leader, have internal audit do a quick review, some standard areas, so that they can be assured things are operating as intended, or have an understanding of areas that might need a little attention. And it makes sense. This committee has heard me talk before about how risk levels inherently increase when you see a change in process, a change in system, or a change in people. So these audits historically include an expenditures review, host operating travel, financial account review, legal action, contracts, equipment, that kind of thing. So with that background in mind, we have some recommendations related to tracking of equipment and some related equipment inventory policy, as well as clarification of language within the procedures and guidelines manual, And lastly, documentation surrounding contract extensions and renewals going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee members or those in attendance? Seeing none, this is for possible action, so I'd like to entertain a motion.
Make a motion for the presentation. I'll make a motion for this, for approval, jeez.
Oh, I'll second it.
Thank you, Vice Chair Ariscotta, and that was a second by Regent Boylan.
Yes, ma'am.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Awesome, that motion carries. Moving on to item number 7, IT Audit Edition.
All right. Thank you, Chair Perkins. For the record, Joe Sunbury. So you've heard me drone on for a bit now, and this is the point where I was supposed to give you a little break from that and introduce Alex Tolliday Wright, who literally is our IT Audit Department of one. He recently hit his 4-year anniversary with NSHE, and in those fast 4 years, he really continues to do a lot behind the scenes. A lot of advisory projects, things that might not yield a traditional deliverable, but are important work. So every so often I ask him to prepare some information so that the committee can see some of the great things he's doing. He's not in the country right now, so you are stuck with me. But I did talk with Alex prior to his departure. I'm confident I can stumble through some of his intended remarks and share a little bit about the great work he's doing and where IT audit intersects with the things on the radar of this committee. Very quickly, as I went through his slides, even the title slide, there's a little bit of alphabet soup, right? Auditors, they love their acronyms. So for those of you wondering, a CISA, that's a Certified Information System Auditor, of which Alex is one. CIA is a Certified Internal Auditor, of which Alex is one. PCI ISA, so that's a designation Alex received actually in order to deliver on a recent advisory project, and that stands for Payment Card Industry Internal Security Assessor, and then he also has his master's degree. So I'll do my best to point out some of these acronyms along the way, and let me know if I miss any. But moving to the overview slide, this is really meant just to provide a general high-level overview of IT Audit's core responsibilities. Alex performs IT audits and similar project activities related to governance, risk management, internal controls, and more often than not, these projects incorporate some kind of compliance or regulatory requirements. And that is where you'll see more alphabet soup, right? I mentioned PCI earlier. That relates to payment card industry data security standards. So if you think about it, organizations that have a certain volume of transactions that accept credit cards, they have to satisfy certain elements and reviews and jump through certain hoops. And Alex played a key role in helping with that project initially in a very cost-effective manner, but its benefit has really paid off because now subsequently he's involved in some of the monitoring of that. So that's been great. GLBA refers to the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act, and that's related to how organizations safeguard certain sensitive customer data. This has made our radar in past years via our external audits, and we work to ensure proper risk assessments are occurring related to those areas. GDPR is the General Data Protection Regulation, which is European law, but some of its requirements often apply to organizations here, including higher ed. And again, it goes back to how is personal information collected and used by an organization. NIST, so that stands for the National Institute of Standards and Technology. But really, that's when you see NIST, that's cybersecurity framework, right? It's very widely used and recognized combination of standards, best practices, and it's kind of meant as a self-assessment to determine an organization's cybersecurity posture. And then the board requires each institution to update their profiles, current and target, every few years. HIPAA, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, again, privacy, security for patient health information. I don't believe it's on the slides, but FERPA is another one, Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, governing the access to educational info and records. So there's no shortage of regulations. I think I've beat that enough. But there's also technology and data security pieces in our external audit that Grant Thornton performs. You'll hear from them later today, as I've noted, but I know Alex has worked a lot with some of their IT auditors to try to move the needle a little bit in some of those findings as well. And then Alex supports the wider internal audit team. I affectionately refer to him as our technology champion. As we mature as a group, we have different auditors who have different levels of comfort with all things IT, but he's done a great job integrating data analytics and some of the other items on our wish list. So I'm going to breeze through these next few slides for the sake of time, but slide 3, I always like this time of year because it's sort of a season for top 10 lists and top 10 risks globally, et cetera, and I think Alex picked up this one from late last year, but he notes here that these risks are frequently cited IT risks essentially are, in any top 10 audit risk list you see, you can typically bucket things into, there's either an IT component or there's a people component. That's almost universally true. The fourth slide is just a high-level summary of some key IT audit projects and activities. There are some past and present projects, and again, many touch on some of those top IT audit risks from the previous slide. It's also worth mentioning, Alex, I think, has very much prescribed to this, agile work and trying to address emerging issues in real time, and that sort of builds into some of the flexibility we'll talk about in our audit plan updates. And then last but not least, the last slide is just a snapshot of continued focus areas that support our goals to be a successful, modern internal audit function. And then I'll read just verbatim what Alex has said. So to work smart, we need to be data and risk driven and incorporate analytics wherever possible. Ultimately, we hope to add value across our NSHE partners, collaborate as much as we can. We'll remain proactive, results driven, and look to add value wherever we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or concerns from the board members that are present? Oh, wow, okay. So, moving on to item number 8.
That's for the best. I would have just forwarded them to Alex anyway. So, thank you, Chair Perkins. For the record, Joe Sunbury. So I appreciate the committee's continued indulgence on this particular item. A few years ago, I referenced the idea of moving our standard work plan away from what was really a static one-year plan and start moving toward providing updates every 6 months or so. And really this, again, was more of a way to try to be more agile and flexible in how we perform the work. So as I've stated in previous meetings, I think this approach is good for a few reasons. Trying to give the committee as much of a realistic estimate and snapshot of what we're planning to work on, and then what are we working on currently, and then monitoring the items that we've already worked on. And so that's the logic that this document follows. So I'll point the committee to pages 3 and 4, which speak to the approach of how the plan was put together, to your question earlier, Chair Perkins, and the measures we take to ensure the plan builds in agility and flexibility, so that as important but unforeseen projects come up throughout the year, we've got that flexibility to provide resources in a timely fashion. It'll speak to some of the highlights and themes, and while I won't read those verbatim, I always like to touch on the training aspect to show the committee the commitment from the audit team in terms of continuing education, staying current with certifications. Since I've been here, really try to have a continued theme of relevance. To stay relevant, internal and external training has to be included and expected. So in addition, I wanted to draw attention to the hours related to non-traditional audit work. So that advisory and consulting type of work seems to be where we get a lot of good feedback, and that's really where we can add a lot of value, save a lot of costs. And while we first dabbled in this approach a few years ago, and it was just a sliver of our audit plan, now it's really more of a quarter of our hours, which is great. It's great. So I'm happy to speak to any specifics in terms of themes. As always, these are at the core of what we're trying to do. We utilize feedback that we get from our key stakeholders, focus on where we can add value and address risks. The first one on the list, though, is important, right? It's responsiveness. And I think back to times where something comes up, can we increase our scrutiny in a given area? And as we become aware of certain items, As policies developed or tighten, this really helps inform our audit plan. So, at past committees, I've included, thought leadership about the concept of the 3 lines of defense model, where it's management, compliance, legal, HR type functions, and internal audit all working together for the best results. And I think that's really what allows us to run relatively lean. We have fewer auditors than institutions, but beyond that cost savings, we develop some great working relationships with the people who are truly the subject matter experts, who are closer to the transactions, and that helps us expand our reach. So I'll pause there before moving on to the next part of the report.
If there's any questions? Regent Boylan.
Thank you, ma'am. And maybe I should ask Mr. Martinez if I'm allowed to ask this question here of Mr. Sunbury. So when you talk about audits, you could do an audit about action in motion, or something like that it's called in the workforce. Anybody know that name? Time in motion. So the audit department would be the department, your department, to carry out something like this, or find someone to carry out this, because it's really an audit. Because you're auditing, if we really need so many people, there's redundancy in jobs, I see. So would that be Mr. Jimmy? Mr. Martinez? I like that name, Jimmy. What do I do?
Jimmy Martinez for the record. While I have no idea what that audit exactly is, I think if it's related to this agenda item, then it should be fine, but I'll defer to the Attorney General's office to see if they disagree.
Yeah, let's repeat the question and see just how close to the topic it comes.
Wow, I've forgotten the question now, but hang on.
So perfect. Moving on.
If I repeat the question and I change my mind, no. So would your department, yeah, go ahead, please.
If you trust me, I'll just try to give a general high level answer.
I trust you.
Which is Joe Sunbury for the record to Regent Boylan's question. I think, one of my responsibilities as Chief Internal Auditor is trying to understand where my team's core competencies are. And so if there is something that any of our key stakeholders, this committee obviously being a major stakeholder, if there's anything of audit interest, we would try our best to determine, is that something, auditable? Is it within that universe, right? And then if we've got the skill sets to do it, we would, and if we don't, we would look to find that skill set, partner, whatever it may be, offer, if we work with a subject matter expert in that area, but could still offer a body to help, that kind of thing. So in general, that's kind of the process, if that makes sense.
That makes sense to me. And now, what is Mr. Attorney General? Sorry. I think you can hear me anyway, but that makes sense to me. Mr. Attorney General, is that fine with you? I was not out of line, right? Asking that.
This is Deputy Attorney General Joel Becker for the record. I think from that elevation, we're okay. It was general enough that it was still within the topic. I think we'll be okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? Okay. Regent Carvalho.
Thank you, Chair Perkins. Just looking at this, and I'm not on this committee, I don't have any level of expertise at all in any of this, so this may be a question that you've already answered, or anyway. Excuse me. In terms of workday, does the internal audit department ever look at that in terms of best uses of it, workflows, things of that nature in terms of workday specifically?
Thank you, Regent Carvalho. For the record, Joe Sunbury. So we have in the past, and this is where I wish Alex was in the country, because he might be able to speak a little bit better in terms of, I know he's partnered with some of the folks that are for example, he is currently working, because it's in the materials, I feel comfortable saying this, he's currently working on an audit, just following along, for instance, within Workday, the terminated employees process, right? Are we timely, when an employee terminates for any reason, are we timely, shutting off access, moving things appropriately, things like that. And so that would be an example of something where he's walking through that process from the IT component side. So that the answer is yeah, we've kind of scratched the surface a little bit. That said, I absolutely want to get him some more resources so we can expand our bandwidth, because I do think that's an important area where we can make a difference. So thank you.
Thank you for that response.
Thank you for the question.
May I?
Yeah, please, Mr. Sunbury.
Thank you, Chair Perkins. For the record, Joe Sunbury. So those of you that have been on the committee for a bit, page 7 is where you'll see some of the charts and graphs tracking our open findings at the institutions. And again, I like to remind the committee wherever I can that this was pushing nearly 200 pages a few years ago, and now we're down to under 40. So a lot more digestible. But so just a few highlights. So this graph on page 7, tracking the unresolved findings, we now show the 5-year trends, and you'll see the direction that graph is going, and that, a few short years ago, that number was really up in the 30s. And, this is where I almost wish we could go back 10 years, because if we go back to when I first started and even a little bit before that, that number was constantly in the 60s. And that's where this committee started to more formally track and monitor those things, and it made a difference, right? And so to me, one of the more useful metrics we have from an internal audit perspective is how many open issues, right? How many past due issues? Because beyond general accountability, that's typically a strong indicator of management's buy-in and willingness to accept our recommendations, as we partner with them. So, thank you.
Yes, I wanted to draw attention to the exception report also. The last item, I think some of those are closed by now because this one stopped. This one stopped a little bit early, if I believe. I think our numbers, our exceptions are actually lower than what the graph represents at this point.
Joe Sunbury, for the record, you are correct. This actually, so the reason why this would show a little bit higher is strictly a timing issue. This report is designed to be through sort of 12/31, so anything that has closed in the first few months of this year would be on the, so this absolutely is lower in real time, if that makes sense.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and that's a tribute to your team, so thank you. Any questions about the report? And this is an information-only item?
It's for approval.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Wrong number. Okay, in that case, I'd like to entertain a motion.
Make a motion to accept the report as presented.
Thank you, Regent Ariscotta, for the motion, and Regent Del Carlo with the second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries. Moving on to number 9.
Thank you, Chair Perkins. For the record, Joe Sunbury, Chief Internal Auditor. So we introduced this section as a standing item to be able to provide some departmental updates and just have a placeholder for discussion. I've used this platform in the past to update the committee on financial aid related findings, walk through our updated risk assessment methodology, and speak about work that internal audit was doing related to other board initiatives. So I have a few quick updates today relevant to this committee. So anytime there are changes to the standards by which internal audit adheres to and conforms with, I like to keep the committee updated, because typically those changes are going to come with necessary changes to our audit charter. And that's good for a couple of reasons, right? So one, so the next time we have a quality assurance review, we could keep conforming, but also it keeps us up with best practices, right? So very recently, I think just about a week ago, in fact, the Institute of Internal Auditors opened their public comment period for some proposed new standards. So typically they'll leave that window open for about 3 months, and just based on past timing, safe to assume that probably by the end of this calendar year, they'll be rolling out some formal changes that relate to these new standards. And then once those get rolled out, you typically have, 6 to 12 months to make sure you get those in effect as an organization. So just want to share that with the committee, something to keep on the radar. The last major overhaul of the standards was probably about 5 or 6 years ago. And I recall we brought forward some necessary and important updates to modernize our internal audit charter. And so I suspect we'll need to do the same thing within the year. Haven't had the opportunity to review those proposed new standards in detail, but one of the things that I thought was very good is they're giving a lot of attention to internal auditing in the public sector. And so I think anything that assists internal auditors specifically in this unique world will be a positive. So another thing I just wanted to keep on the radar in front of mind for the committee, as I mentioned earlier, we have a commitment to have Title IX specific update and presentation at the June meeting. And I think that'll be very important and quite relevant with the potential timing and release of updated regs. Also for the June meeting, that's when we typically do our more comprehensive hotline updates. And one of the reasons why we have done it in June historically is that's based on the timing of when we receive benchmarking data from NAVEX Global, who administers our hotline. So as a matter of fact, they just released the date of the webinar that is March 28th. So later this month, we'll get data that'll come out, and then we can kind of slice and dice and compare the NSHE submission data for that useful compare and contrast for this committee. Things like volume year over year, volume in the different categories, where these items are going, anonymous versus not anonymous, and importantly, based on recent feedback, tracking those closed items versus what remains open. So those will be some of the metrics we can provide, and we'll continue to work toward improvements, increased awareness, enhancing audit involvement, better define those processes, whatever it may be, but we always welcome any and all input from stakeholders. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Any question or feedback from the committee or any member in attendance? Okay, you guys are sleeping at the helm here. Everybody's so quiet. Moving right along to item number 10. Go ahead, Ms. McCormick.
Good afternoon, everyone. Chair Perkins. For the record, my name is Kim McCormick, and I'm with Grant Thornton. Pleased to be with you today to talk through the next 4 agenda items. By way of reference, as we jump into agenda item number 10, many of you were at the Audit Committee meeting in December, where we reported out on the results of the financial statement audit for NSHE for the year ended June 30, 2022. And you may recall I mentioned that was an audit that we couldn't complete because there were a handful of pending open items that got in the way of NSHE finishing those financial statements and us finishing the audit. So I'm here to give you an update on where that stands. By far, the biggest open item was waiting.
Excuse me, is there a slide? Just a handout? Okay. No? Okay, thank you. Please continue. I'm sorry for the interruption.
No, that's quite all right. Just by a way of reminder, the biggest open item by far that NSHE was waiting for was for the financial audit of PEBS to be complete. That's the Public Employee Benefit System. They audit the overall post-employment benefits for all employers who participate in that system, including NSHE. It's a big number that goes on your financial statements, and quite frankly, their audit just wasn't done. That audit arrived just recently, and so now the engines can be revved up again for the financial statement audit to be able to be concluded. So we expect it to be done by the end of the month, but the good news is that open item has now been collected. There were a couple of other pending open items that NSHE was considering to update its financial statements for. These are items that came out of our audit. One resulted in an adjustment that was related to the adoption of a new accounting standard for leases, and it was a $44 million adjustment that didn't impact the bottom line. It was more of a classification issue of whether or not the obligation is called a lease or long-term debt. Okay, so it was a geography issue. The second matter had to do with a net position classification issue at one of the institutions, whether or not net position should have been restricted or unrestricted. It was originally classified as restricted and it needed to be moved to unrestricted, so that's now been corrected in the financial statements. And so in the supplemental information associated with agenda item number 10, those adjustments are listed in the same document that we talked about back in December, but those updates are reflected herein. And I'll talk a little bit more about those topics when we move to agenda item number 11, but before we move on, I'm happy to answer any questions on agenda item number 10.
Are there any questions on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll move right ahead.
All right, very good. So moving on to agenda number 11, Kim McCormick for the record. So item 11 and the attachment is the actual financial statement draft of NSHE itself, including the drafts of our auditor's reports. Again, we talked about these back in December. What's different now is those financial statements have been updated for those two adjustments that I just mentioned. And as you all know, one of the byproducts of an audit is that we have findings for any internal control matters that we want to bring to your attention. And so we've added 2 internal control comments to our letters, and they both relate to the 2 issues that needed to be corrected, the classification of the lease and the classification of net position, and some recommendations so how those types of errors don't repeat in the future. So those are both now listed in the document along with management's planned corrective corrective action items, so to make sure something similar doesn't repeat in the future. Happy to answer any questions on this agenda item.
Okay. Regent Ariscata.
I'm doing this off the cuff. There was something in there in regards to liabilities or a decrease in liabilities of over $100 million. And I was just curious if there's a little bit more. Let's see. It was early on. Oh, here we go. Page 18. The total liabilities of the year decreased from 107 million, primarily driven by the decrease in net pension liability. Can you get a little bit more detailed on that for me, please?
I will need to defer. That sounds like the page that you're looking at is management's discussion and analysis.
Okay.
And it talks about trends from one year to the next. And so that would be a question for the management team. I don't know if there's anyone here who... Rhett?
Good afternoon, Rhett Vertrees, Assistant Chief Financial Officer for System Admin. I believe that change was primarily due to the investments within that. The investments did very well in 2021, and so the liability came down as a result of improved investments.
Easy answer to a difficult question. Thank you.
Yep.
That was good.
Thank you. Any further questions? Go ahead, Ms. McCormick.
All right, very good. Kim McCormick for the record. We're moving on to agenda item number 12.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. That was for possible action, but I think we should wait till June when it actually is complete. Is that correct? Before?
Joe Sunbury for the record. So, and I can defer to a lawyer, but my thought would be it may make sense to approve this update for a couple of reasons. One, assuming the financials do not materially change, Grant Thornton will soon finish up their audit. They'll finish executing their audit around that OPEB number and issue their audit opinion. And that is important before the end of the month because there's certain filings that NSHE is required to do. There's certain stakeholders and financial institutions that need those. So if this committee approves this today and the signed opinion is over financials that are materially the same, then we can come back in June for formal acceptance, so everything's on the record, but in the meantime, there would be use in that. So just my thought. Thanks.
So the motion would be to accept it unless things are materially changed?
Again, I'll defer to a legal person, but I think that would be acceptable because if there are any material changes, we can certainly make sure that that the committee and the board as a whole sees those.
So substantial material changes?
Correct.
Okay.
Jimmy Martinez for the record, and because any substantial changes would need to come back to the board anyway, I think the board can go ahead and accept the report as presented, and then those substantive changes would come back to the board in June, if any.
And if there were substantive changes, would that interfere with the filing at the end of the month?
Joe Sunbury for the record. We would want to make sure that the committee saw those. So we would have to get creative and make sure we got those to you, but hopefully we'll be good to go sooner rather than later.
Thank you so much. Vice Chair Ariscata, would you like to make that motion?
Yes, I mean, well, considering it's, the report we have in front of us is 252 pages. I think it's imperative that you do point out, or if there's some substantive changes that that have been discovered or going to be presented, that they're significantly presented to us. And I believe June would be the most appropriate time. So
I'll take that as a motion.
there we go.
Thank you. And do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Regent Boylan.
Yes, ma'am.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Now number 12.
All right, now number 12, Kim McCormick for the record. So the next audits that we'll be talking about are the standalone audits for UNLV medicine. I'm going to refer back again to the December Audit Committee meeting where we talked about UNLV medicine, and we talked about the financial statement audit for the year ended June 30, 2022. That audit was complete and we reported out at that time. What I'm reporting out on today is their second audit, which is not an audit of the financial statements, but it's what's called a uniform guidance audit or a single audit that kicks in when you have a certain dollar amount of federal awards that were received. So UNLV Medicine went through its second uniform guidance audit ever for the year ended June 30, 2022. The program that needed to be audited came from Department of Health and Human Services. It was a pandemic relief program called the Provider Relief Program, and it provided funding to help with administering vaccines, among other things. So that was the program that we audited. We focused in two areas. One, did you use the program monies for the allowable use, and did you report them correctly to the federal government? We did have an exception that came up during the course of the audit, and this had to do with a reporting issue. The reporting of how you use the money goes into a portal the Department of Health and Human Services maintained, and there was a material error in that reporting, in that expenditures that were reported during the period were a duplicate of expenditures that were reported in the previous period to the tune of $200,000. So there's an error in the report out there, so therefore that was non-compliant, a material non-compliance matter. So that is reflected in our reporting in agenda item number 12, and I'll have a little bit more to say about it when we get to agenda item number 13, but 12 is information only. Happy to answer any questions before we move on to number 13.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, item number 13.
Item number 13. And so whenever there is a material noncompliance that we run across during the course of the audit, we present that in a formal finding presentation. So within the attachment for item number 13 is the formal finding associated with this issue. We thought the underlying problem that gave rise to this error was just some internal control absences in having a second set of eyes review that report before it was submitted. We thought that that would be helpful to introduce that segregation of duties. Management was in agreement with that recommendation, and they put together their formal corrective action plan that's embedded in the document as well. So this report is now finalized. It gets filed with the federal government. That happens in the next 30 days, and they will review that finding and decide how they want to pursue. But our recommendation to UNLV Medicine is that they reach out to HHS and try to get ahead of the game and get that one resolved. So that's really the end of my formal comments. Happy to answer any questions on this agenda item.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this? Regent Carvalho.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This question is probably more for President Whitfield or Vice President Khan if he's still here. Does this adverse finding affect UNLV Medicine in a financial way at all? I see Dean Khan over there. Thank you.
I think my, the present CEO, the practice plan is online, but I'm going to say the answer is no. This was a recording error, not an error in use of funds, et cetera. So, yeah.
Deputy Attorney General Joel Becker, just for the record, could you please state your name for the record? Thank you.
My mistake. I'm sorry. Mark Kahn, Dean, UNLV School of Medicine, and Vice President for Health Affairs at UNLV. Thank you.
Thank you for that answer. Did that answer your question?
Thank you.
Perfect. Any other questions about this item number 13? Seeing none, I'd like to entertain a motion.
Motion for acceptance?
Thank you, Vice Chair Arascata. And do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Regent Boylan.
Thank you,
I have
ma'am.
a first and a second. Any questions or concerns or comments? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Awesome. That motion carries. Thank you, Ms. McCormick, for all your hard work.
My pleasure.
That leads us to item number 14, new business. I'm sorry. Any new business for the audit committee?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Boylan.
If I may, what I was mentioning earlier, I'd like that to be new business. You know, to see the action in motion. I keep forgetting what it's called. To be audited by Giuseppe Sunbury's department, if you don't mind me saying that. But yeah, it would be something that you would find, like you said, maybe an outside firm. So I'm requesting that for new business also. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for that reminder. Any other new business for this committee? Amazing. And with that, let's go to public comment. Any public comment in Elko?
No public comment in Elko at this time.
Thank you. Any public comment in Reno?
There's none in Reno at this time.
Thank you. Any public comment in North Las Vegas? Regent Del Carlo.
Thank you, Chair Perkins. I just would like to say we got notification that Chief Internal Auditor Sunbury is moving on to UNLV, so congratulations to UNLV. You've been stellar since I've been a regent, and you are going to be deeply, deeply missed. Your depth of knowledge and your patience and your ability to just explain things so well, and your heart's really in the right place. I mean, none of this is punitive. It's just to make sure we're complying with our own laws and state laws, federal laws, et cetera. So I will deeply miss you, and I thank you for your 7.5-year contribution to NSHE.
Any comments, Mr. Sunbury?
No, this will turn into an awards show, and they'll have to play music to play me off. There's just too many people to thank. But just everyone in this room, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to partner with you these many years. And as I told Regent Boylan before the meeting, I'm still in the NSHE family. I'm just hanging out with a different group of cousins. That's all. So thank you.
That's wonderful. Very well said, Regent DeCarlo. Thank you. And no more public comments, so this meeting is adjourned.